Right. Good morning, students. We were discussing about this last time. Basically, role situations. We have basically three role situations. We define what is a role and three role situations. We have role overload, role conflicts, and role ambiguity. And those things were discussed when it comes to a role. And basically, those we discuss those roles, discuss that those roles leads to employee stress, which means that those basic role situations lead to negative job related outcomes like job stress, right? Job poor performance and job dissatisfaction, turnover intention and absenteeism, right? So role overload, conflicts, and ambiguity. Lesser level of lower degree of all those when the role overload is low, when the role conflict is low, and when the role ambiguity is low, stress level will lead to a low stress level will be low, and job related performance and satisfaction will be high, and turnover and the absenteeism will be low, right? So which have basically a positive relationship between these two variables, right? So socialization categories, when it comes to socialization, uh, we have four categories: preliminary learning, learning about the organization, learning to function in the work group, learning to perform the job, and personal learning, right? So when you look at these five, uh, so basically uh, uh, learning, you can uh, see that um, areas for learning. Basically, learning, preliminary learning, what is learning, and basically you are supposed to learn about the organization, the entire organization, job, work group, and your personal learning. Right. So all the areas covered when it comes to a job. When it comes to a learning, all the required areas covered. It covers the organization, it covers the job, and the person and the work group or the division, the people uh, you are working with, right? So how we can learn? Basically, you are supposed to learn those aspects, right? Learn about the organization, learn about the job, learn about the people that you are working with, and learn your personal learning, right? So those areas covered. How we can do that? Feldman's stage model of socialization, which has three stages basically: anticipatory socialization, encounter, and change and acquisition. We'll talk about those things. A Friedman model of organizational socialization. Try to understand this uh, diagram model, in other words, right? So what are the stages in this model, right? So here, anticipatory socialization and encounter, change acquisition, then behavioral outcomes and effective outcomes, right? So try to understand the stages when it comes to this, right? uh, Anticipatory socialization. What is anticipatory socialization? uh, you need to understand about the organization. That is realism about the organization. Realism is the real situation about your organization, right? So here each stage is given in detail, right? So let's see. Uh, Basically, why I have given this model to you, because this is a model to socialize, to follow in socialization. Simply, this model emphasizes or teaches you on how to follow, how to do a socialization process, obviously, right? So this is a guideline that you can follow uh, in a socialization process. How that can be done, basically. Uh, in the anticipatory socialization model, in the anticipatory socialization level, what you need to do, basically realism about the job, realism about the organization, realism about the job, then consequences of skills and abilities, and congruence of needs and values. Those are the four areas that other stages are expanded, right? So these are the four main areas that other sub areas are expanded under each of the other levels in this model, right? So this realism about the organization, basically, what is the real situation about your organization? What is the real situation about your job? And congruence of skills and abilities. Because as you know, the congruence is compatible. The job must be compatible with your skills and abilities. Job skill match must be there, and congruence of needs and values in the sense that the job must be consistent with or compatible with your needs and values, right? So when you are obviously socializing a person, you need to emphasize that your skills and abilities must be really consistent or compatible with your job requirement. And you need to do the same when it comes to the needs and values of the employees, right? So as you know, you need to understand employee needs and values, and based on those needs and values, we must be carefully enough to match those needs and values to the job requirements. Otherwise, if the employee suppose that the job does not meet the employee needs and values, obviously employee may not be satisfied, and sometimes employee may leave the organization or the job, right? So therefore, employee needs and values need to be satisfied by the job. To do that, basically what we can do is we need to identify needs and values of the employees, and we can offer, basically at the selection, we can offer a job which really matches with the needs and values and skills and abilities of the job holder. So that is basically done at the selection, and that must be ensured at the socialization, right? So basically what we can do at basically this is done at the selection, and that is the process is ensured at the socialization process. Anticipatory socialization means that anticipatory socialization means simply expected level of expectation, because the candidate expects to know about what is the real situation about the organization, and what is the real situation of the job, right? Basically, these two things are anticipated by the job applicant or the newcomer, right? And this basically, when it comes to this one, all the skills, abilities, needs, and values must be met by the job, right? So those are expected, anticipated by the job holder. Then encounter. Encounter means meeting. So here, this is the expectation, and what we need to do, we need to meet those things. Encounter means meeting. Meeting means fulfilling, right? So at this level, then this is the expectation level, this is the expected level, and this is the meeting level. Meeting level low, simply fulfilling level, right? So how we can do that? Management of outside life conflicts, management of intergroup role conflicts. So basically, these two things can be done. And let's see one by one. Anticipatory socialization, setting of realistic expectation, determining a match with the newcomer. So these two things happening, because realistic expectations, real situations, real expectations must be known, and expectations must be matched. Those two things happening. Those two things are done at this level. Then encounter, forming formal commitment made to join the organization, then initiation into the job and establishing relationships, and the roles are clarified, right? So then what we can do is we need to commit, we need to make a formal commitment, in whom, from in the job holder, right? So we need to make a commitment in the job holder to join the organization. Or in other words, we need to motivate the newcomer to join the organization and to retain the organization through the socialization. That is the major expectation at the encounter level. Encounter level, in the socialization process, once the anticipation, no, anticipation means expectation. We need to really know about what is the expectation of the newcomer. And then at the encounter, we need to fulfill that, right? We need to fulfill that. So how we can fulfill? In the fulfilling stage, what we can do is we need to really make the formal commitment, or in other words, we need to motivate, we can motivate the newcomer to join the organization and retain in the organization. Since he is already joined in with the organization, now what we need to do is at the encounter, we need to make the newcomer retain in the organization. So that is a psychological process that is done at the socialization. So we need to make a impression, good impression, which motivate the newcomer to retain in the organization, right? So initiation in the jobs means simply start working. Initiation in the job simply means that start working, right? And establishing relationships. So once he started working, obviously he need to have a communication with others, because as you know, the newcomer can't do a job alone, because all the, as you know, as highlighted in the systems theory, organization is a system. The organization need to work with other departments or other functions. Each job is related to another job, right? So all the jobs are interconnected, interlinked. For example, that's why we are here in Sri Lanka when the non-academic strike is going on, right? We can't survive without non-academics. We can't do our jobs without non-academics. As you know, all the canteen cleaning department, mark entering, opening the doors, and all the non-academic support, some academic supportive activities are done by the non-academics. Without them, we can't do our job. That's why we are doing lectures online, right? But when it comes to the, suppose that still the non-academic strike is going on till end of August, obviously we will face a real trouble of conducting our examinations, right? So we can do the lectures like this, but we can't conduct the examinations like this. For that, we need to physically come in, and We need to get their support. Academic, non-academic staff support need to be obtained in printing the papers, in arranging the paper packets, and arranging the holes, cleaning the holes, and there are a lot of things to be done, right? So then without them we can't do our jobs. So likewise, we need to establish relationships. Without, for example, if I am the only lecturer conducting lecture sessions, then uh, uh, I can't never imagine that I will be able to do my job alone without getting help from others, right? So because that's why we say that all the jobs in an organization is interconnected, interlinked. So therefore, we need to make relationships with all the other jobs. Without the support of them, we can't get the job done. So therefore, in the socialization process, when the newcomer comes to the organization, just join to the organization, we need to formally arrange the formal arrangement need to be made to make aware, or to have, or in other words, to familiarize the people, right? When it comes to the relationship, so obviously we need to make relationships. We need to aware relationships. We need to formally socialize the people, right? Getting to know each other, in other words. Uh, so that is basically establishing relationships. Then once the relationships are established, getting to know each other, with each other, obviously then roles clarified. Your roles are, these are your roles, and these must be played, and those must be played by you, and these are the resources that you have been given in order to play those roles and play these roles. Likewise, the role uh, given to each and every job, basically, since we are focusing on one job, say, let's say, the roles given to a one particular job need to be clarified, if any, clarified in the sense that the roles must be defined to the newcomer, and his feedbacks need to be obtained, whether he's really understood their really understood his or her job duties and job roles, right? So then clarification is that if he is having any problem or any question regarding any one particular job role, then that must be cleared, that must be clarified, so that those things must be given at the encountering, right? Then what let's see what are the stages of encountering. Management of outside life conflicts, management of intergroup role conflicts. Basically, when it comes to the relationships, we are supposed to manage the intergroup conflicts within and outside. Within means obviously within the group, within the department. Intergroup conflicts need to be resolved. That is coming under, that comes under the relationships. Then outsides, obviously, sometimes work, home conflicts, role conflict, work, maybe work, family life may interfere with the work. So there is a conflict, and those need to be resolved. And role definition, as I told you, that's that, that comes under this role definition, role clarified, then role need to be defined, and initiation to the task and initiation to the group, right? So initiation to the task means starting the job and starting the group activities. Group activities in the sense that the departmental activities, and basic his or her own duties and responsibilities performance. And those things done basically, and those things are summarized in these four activities. And change and acquisition. Suppose now, when you look at this model, this is the expectation, this is the meeting fulfilling, then change and acquisition. Suppose expectation is 100% and meeting is 90%. There is a gap. Then if a one particular job holder having a gap between the expectation and the actual, then at this level that change, that lacking part is fulfilled. 90% is, suppose is not the 100%, and expectation is 100%, actual is 80%, then there is a 20% lacking, right, of what is expected. Then at this level, that level need to be understood and fulfilled, realized. That's the basic idea in the socialization. Basically, in the change and acquisition, that is the basic idea. What we need to do at this level, right? That is the basic idea of what we need to do at this level, right? So basically, when you see this, there are three sub activities to be done. Resolution of role demands, right? So here, as you know, these are the actual level and these are the expected level, right? So organization expect this level, job expect this level, and based on this level, someone meeting this level. The organization meeting, suppose 100% units, but he's having management role conflicts, and maybe he's having work family conflicts, and due to that, this level can't be achieved. Organization is expecting 100 level of performance, but actually he is facing these problems, and due to that he is performing 80% level of performance. Then what is there, what need to be done at this level, that 20% uh, need to be resolved, right? That the 20% need to be addressed. Then so through the resolution of role demands, because role definition, the role is defined, what role need to be done, and that role may be interfered with some role conflicts outside, within the group role conflicts, and outside the role conflicts. Then at this level, those conflicts need to be resolved, right? So that is something like 100%, 80%, and 20% lacking. And that 20% lacking is resolved simply through task mastery, adjustment to group norms and values. Then performance evaluation can be done at this level. Then simply understand what are the tasks to be improved. What are the tasks that he or she need to be expertised? Or what are the tasks or task related skills that need to be developed in order to improve the performance of each task, and adjustment to the group norms and values. Because as you know, at the group level, the group department level performance, department level norms, expected behaviors, expected level of performances may be there, right? So then sometimes due to these problems, that expected level cannot be achieved by the individual employee. Then what we can do simply is that we can teach what are the group level expectations, and what are the group level norms, and so on, right? So then simply, as I told you, as I said you, at this level is about gap filling, right? Change and acquisition simply means that you are supposed to fill the gaps. At this level, simply you need to understand what is the expectation, right? Also, no, sorry, what is the expectation and what is the encountering? Encountering means actual level. So then, if there is a gap, that need to be filled when it comes to the role, right? So task mastery, simply task must be taught, or task must be trained, or task must be developed, task related skills must be developed. And then if there is a behavioral problem that does not comply with the group expectations, obviously group norms, in other words, those must be trained by the HRD staff at the socialization, right? Then behavioral outcomes. So now what happens is you change, you alter, and you make some initiatives to acquire what is lacking. What is lacking? But that is done basically at the change and acquisition, right? So you simply understand what are the areas that somebody is lacking, and you simply try to change or acquire what is like what he or she is lacking. Now, in the next step, simply you can see what are the behavioral outcomes. Once they develop, once they acquired, once they change their own expectation, right? So what is expected can be changed. In other words, simply the role expectations, actual role behaviors can be improved in order to meet the expected level. Then once developing an acquisition, we can see whether the expected level is demonstrated. The expected anticipatory level is demonstrated. So simply by means of behavioral outcomes. So carry out role assignments independently. For example, when the role assignments, role duties, whether the employee individual, whether the job holder, the newcomer performing his or her duties independently, individually, rather than having any supervision, rather than having any training, because at this level all the trainings have been given. At this level all the supportive actions have been given in order to fulfill the anticipation. Now we are waiting and see whether the employee, the newcomer, performing the expected level, right? So that is known as behavioral outcome. Simply whether the employee demonstrating the behavioral expectations are simply monitored at this level, right? So that can be measured by means of uh, simply checking whether the employee is carrying out the assignments, given assignment and role duties independently. And then general then remain with the organization, because we altered all the things. Then simply we can further check whether they are remaining with the organization, right? Because we try to change their behavior, we try to develop them by means of giving to acquire something to acquire, for example, skill or attitude or other related competency that he is lacking, right? So we facilitate the newcomer to acquire what he or she is lacking. Then simply once that is done, we simply wait and see whether he is retaining with the organization, whether he is performing well, right? Whether he is performing well independently, whether he is retaining in the organization, and whether he innovate and cooperate spontaneously, whether he can innovate, whether he can cooperate with others, whether he can innovate something new, right? So these three areas can be monitored at the behavioral outcomes levels. Then affective outcomes, affective means simply employees' feeling levels, right? The employee level of feelings, feeling outcomes, general satisfaction of the employee, and internal work motivation, whether the employee is working with motivation, and whether the employee is involved in the job, right? So simply everything that is needed to be done at the socialization clearly explained in this model. Simply this is the expectation, this is the meeting level, what is actually having, and if there is a change at this level, at these two levels, right? Suppose 100% is the expectation, and to 80% is the actual. Right now, 20% needed to be improved, and for that, the HRD people at the socialization facilitate to fill that 20% gap. Right? Maybe sometimes behavioral changes, maybe sometimes behavioral modifications, maybe sometimes training and further attitude developments, maybe sometimes resolutions when he's encountering some inter-role conflicts, inter-role ambiguity, role conflict, role overload, and something like that. So then HRD people try to resolve those things. Then after changing an acquisition step is done, then we can see what are the behavioral outcomes of the newcomer, right? So whether he is carry out, that is simply can be monitored by means of these outcomes. Whether whether he or she is performing well, carrying out his or her duties or job related roles independently, and whether he is remaining with the organization, or whether he can innovate or cooperate uh, spontaneously, right? So effective commitment is the feeling part. Further feelings or the perceptions can be monitored or can be measured by means of general satisfaction of the employee, and by means of internal work motivation and job involvement, right? So I think you got the point. You got the clear idea of what is highlighted with this model, right? So further explaining these things, uh, right? So what do newcomers need? Clear informations on newcomers obviously need clear informations on expectations, norms, roles, and values. Assistance in developing needed knowledge, skills, attitudes, and other characteristics. Accurate help in interpreting the events. So basically, newcomers needs all these things. What are they? What I am expected? What you are expected by the organization must be known by the newcomer. What are the norms? What are the rules? What are the roles? And what are the values needed by the organization? Must be known by the newcomer. And at the same time, newcomer must be assisted in developing the needed, expected knowledge, skill, attitude, and other characteristics. Suppose 20% is having a lack of what is expected, right? So then employee must be assisted in in getting the lacking 20%, right? And again, uh, uh, employee, the newcomer must be given an accurate help in interpreting events in the sense that what is happening in the organization, what is there, and what need to be done, what type of organization we are in. All the events in the organizations need to be explained, need to be interpreted, and assistance must be given. Maybe sometimes, as you know, for example, think about your very first few days of University of Rouen, just after your enrollment, at the very first few days, you can't understand what is happening here and there in the university, right? So then you need an assistance, For example, in order to get the ID cards, in order to get your library cards, maybe where is the canteen is, where the canteen is located, and how we need to have our food, and how we need to interact with the lecturers, and you need to know about those things, because what is happening, what are the events happening, and how they are happening need to be known very carefully by the newcomer. So therefore, accurate help need to be provided for interpreting those events on how they are happening and what are the things happening, right? So those things must be given, and those areas must be covered by a socialization process, right? So basically, expectations, norms, roles, values, and assistance, and also accurate help must be given at the socialization process. Basically, apart from the basic model, the things highlighted by this basic model, what is highlighted from this model, uh, what type of informations that the newcomer need to be given at the socialization is summarized here in this slide, right? So with this that particular model highlights these areas that particular socialization model for socialization event, socialization program address these areas, right? So that is those are the areas that particular socialization program need to address, and those areas are highlighted by this particular model, right? So now, as we learned in the we'll take this, right? So now, right, so we did that. Now, two approaches to socialization. There are two approaches. One is realistic job preview. The other one is employee orientation. At the very first day, I think last time I explained this, what is realistic job preview, and we'll look at that one as well today as well. What is realistic job preview? As I said you before, realistic job preview is the process that provides new employee with accurate information about the job they are applying for. This includes both the positive and negative aspects of the job, right? So at the socialization, we need to provide accurate information, real information, what need to be done and how they need to be, how those activities need to be done, and what expectations the company or the organization is expected from you. What are the things that the organization is expected from you? What are the outcomes that you need to demonstrate? Real situations, not in a what you call is hypothetical or augmented kind of uh, things that so some people in order to attract high talented people, false informations may be published attractive in order to attract more candidates. Maybe false information, false package information, false reward information, false what do you call is job previews are published at the vacancies, at the vacancy notifications at the recruitment level. In that case, the new candidates or the newcomers dreamed about the organization, or maybe have a nice dream about the organization, then really they are motivated to apply. But when they really come to the organization, they really see the real situation about the organization and about the job, and then they realize that what they dreamed and actual situation, there is a gap between what they really dreamed about and the actual situation. So when there is a gap, obviously they impress that their impression is not really what they really thought about and what is the actual. Since there is a gap, obviously they try to have a bad impression about the organization, and that bad impression may lead to leave the organization. So then that's why we say always that in the socialization and at the recruitment campaign, we need to have a realistic job previews, because at the recruitment level, people or the candidates really know what is the real situation of the organization and what type of job they have to do, and what is the type of the organization and what is the situation of the organization. Everything must be given in real to the candidates. Then once they know all these things, they don't have a bad impressions once they come to the organization physically to do the job. So therefore, there is no gap uh, about the between the expectation or imagination and the actual, right? So then that's why we are supposed to give a realistic job preview. Normally at the socialization, this realistic job preview is further communicated to the newcomer. Right. So realistic job previews can help to reduce employee turnover by helping new employees to make more informed decisions about whether or not the job is right for them. Right. So obviously, once the realistic job preview is given to the newcomer, they can decide whether the job is really fitted for them or not, right? So once the realistic job preview is given to the newcomer, obviously they can really think about whether the job is really fitted to him or her, uh, really fitted or not to him or her, right? If it is not fitted, then they can leave the organization, right? That's why we can, because at the socialization level, we have carried the newcomer to some to uh, uh, newcomer to some extent, maybe uh, at the recruitment, recruitment is passed, selection is passed. Now uh, the newcomer has been brought forward to some extent in the organizational career. So maybe sometimes 6 months and nearly 6 to 7 months has been already spent for this process from recruitment to socialization. So that's a cost for the organization. When the newcomer leave the organization just after the socialization, that's really a cost for the organization, right? So in that case, obviously, the HR books and the HRD book says that the realistic job previews must be given at the recruitment level, right? Then obviously, once the newcomer knows really about what is what the newcomer has to do or not, obviously then the people who are not capable of doing the real jobs, obviously job duties and responsibilities may not apply, right? So once the real situation is communicated to the newcomer or the recruiters, uh, so then, but here at this level, rather than just leaving the employees just after starting job, at the socialization level, we need to further confirm the real nature of the job to the newcomer, right? So further confirm the real nature of the job to the newcomer, right? Given what do you call this? Uh, Given already the job realistic job previews have already been given at the recruitment level, right? Even though the realistic job previews have been given at the recruitment level, the further we are supposed to give the realistic job preview RJPs or realistic job previews at the socialization level, right? So you are advised or you are advised to do the realistic job previews at the recruitment level. However, it's better you can do or you can confirm the same at the socialization as well, right? That does not mean that you are not allowed to, you are not supposed to do the realistic job previews at the recruitment and just you are supposed to do the realistic job preview at the socialization itself is a waste for the company, waste for the organization. Because when you do the realistic job preview at the socialization itself, that suppose the employee may realize that the job does not fit for the employee and leave the organization at the socialization level, that particular employee, the company has some, made some cost for that type of employee to bring to a certain level in the organizational career ladder from the recruitment to the socialization. So for that, the organization has some incurred some cost for that process. That is a cost for the organization. So therefore, it is advisable to do the RJP, realistic job previews, at the recruitment level, but that need to be confirmed at the socialization level. Right. So that is all about realistic job previews. And effects of realistic job preview. Here, the same thing denoted by this abbreviation RJP, denoting the realistic job previews. Vaccination of expectations. Vaccination means input the expectations. Then perception of honesty and caring. Perception of honesty and caring. Basically, we need to perceive the perceptions need to be honesty and simply honesty and caring. Simply, we are honestly caring you. Honesty and caring must be expected. And within this context, because as you know, caring is expected by the newcomer. And obviously, honesty is expected by the organization, right, from the newcomer. So then what level of honesty and the caring is in the organization or is in the job, right? So this is basically perceived by the newcomer. What level of honesty and what level of caring is there within the job, which is expected by the newcomer. And simply under this, we can input what type of expectations that we are supposed from you. And self-selection, internal locus of control, and commitment to choice of organization, right? So then in under these four headings, try to understand these, what do you call this, these, the connections between each boxes highlighted in this diagram. Once the expectations is entered or inputted, then self-selection, simply people, self-selection is, for example, if you take me, I prefer what I have, what I don't have, right? Because simply, for example, you expect me to teach in good way, in an understandable way. Then I understand that your expectations can be met by me. right? You expect to teach me 100%, but I personally understand whether I can meet that expectation or not. That is self-selection, right? Suppose that same things. Suppose that if I can understand. If I am not 100% able to teach well, right? So suppose I'm not a good teacher, but I'm going to I understand that you are expecting me to teach 100% in a way that you are able to understand, right? So I personally know that I can't achieve that goal objective. That is the personal self-selection, right? So what are the expectations? Inputting expectations simply means that giving expectations. Then self-selection is candidate themselves or the newcomer himself herself understand that which level he is having. And internal locus of control. Internal locus of control is kind of a perception that internal things control his or her behaviors. Simply we assume that our luck, right? I failed the exam due to my, let's say, karma. I sat for A level for 5 times. Then all the 5 times I failed the exam. And then you imagine that never I can't pass the exam. That is my fate. That is my karma. That is my fate. So that is internal locus of control. And simply you say that another thing, we have internal locus of control and external locus of control. You assign say for example, your success or failure is assigned to your internal things. That is internal locus of control. Suppose, for example, you have let's say, very important exam to be passed, to be sat in the next year, and you prepare for this exam today, right? So, and people say that you can't face this exam and you are not capable enough to face this exam, and something like that. Various negative things are told to you. In that sense, you strongly believe that you can face this exam and you can pass this exam, having your strong confidence that you have never failed any exam uh, uh, ever you had during your career so far, then having that strong confidence, you strongly think that you can face this exam and you will definitely face this, you will definitely pass this exam, right? So in that case, you are told as you have internal locus of control, because internal strong, maybe invisible powers are there that uh, influence you to control your behavior, right? So now you simply expectations are there and you self-select what is having and what is not having, and that is characterized by the internal locus of control. And then finally, depending on those self-selection and internal locus of control, you try to commit towards your job, right? Try to understand what I'm telling, right? So these things are very serious things. Without any text I'm explaining, and by reading those things you have to make, because try to carefully listen to all these explanations. Otherwise, in order to understand these figures, especially these diagrams, you need to read a lot, right? Then, so with that, with this basic connection, and these sub-level, these sub-areas are further explained from top to bottom, and finally you get involuntary turnover and tenure in the organization, right? So involuntary turnover means decision to whether state or whether stay or leave the organization. In voluntary turnover may be personally deciding to leave the organization. Involuntary turnover may be sometimes done by the organizational factors by which simply employee decide to leave the organization. Then tenure in the organization is simply there is an inverse relationship. When the involuntary turnover is high, tenure in the organization is low, because as the turnover turnover perceptions is high, obviously the duration by which you retain in the organization is very low. There is a negative relationship. And those are the two outcomes that ultimately comes derived from this realistic job previews. Once the realistic job preview is really done, involuntary turnover is very low, right? So realistic job previews is really done, carefully done in a very good manner, then involuntary turnover is very low, right? And then long-term tenure is resultant, right? So now try to understand these figures by yourself, and this is the connection. Once the realistic job preview is given, and these things happened, and as a result of that, involuntary turnover is low, because role expectations, suppose role expectations are clearly given, then their role is uh, clear. What they are supposed to do is very clear, because role expectations are clearly explained. What we are expecting from you is clearly given. Once that is given, a job holder newcomer really knows what he or she is expected to do. Then role clarity is there. Then once the role clarity is clearly given, then coping mechanism to develop the new job. They can cope with the new job, because as you know, once everything given clear, expectations and the role expectations and everything clear, then he can perform really nice without any barrier, without any difficulty, right? So because when there is a trouble or when there is a problem with the job, they can cope with them, because once the expectations are clearly given, resources are clearly given, once the newcomer having difficulties with the job, they can really resolve all these jobs, because expectations are clearly given, right? Once a newcomer or the new job holder is encountering so much difficulties with the job related difficulties are there. In that sense, once the expectations and really the resources needed have already provided, then obviously then the newcomer or the job holder can really resolve all these difficulties. Then that results to increase his or her performance, and then that results to involuntary turnover. That results to lower involuntary turnover. There is a negative relationship between these two. When the performance is high, involuntary turnover is low. Suppose the negative side of this, uh, uh, if expectations are not clearly given, then role is not clear, then mechanisms for developing uh, coping mechanisms developed for new job is very low. The coping mechanisms is very low. Once a difficulty is encountered with the job, the coping mechanism is very low in that job, because the employee can't cope with those difficulties, because they don't have what they are expected. They don't have been given to resolve those conflicts or to resolve these barriers or difficulties. Then job performance is low. Then involuntary turnover is very high, and that results to lower tenure in the job, in the organization, right? That's how we can uh, go, right? Sometimes you may be given a question on this, right? Uh, what are the effects of realistic job preview? What are the possible effects of realistic job preview? Explain this with the model you learned in the class. What are the possible effects of realistic job preview? Once a realistic job preview is given to the newcomer, what are the possible outcomes? What are the possible effects? Explain this with a standard model you learn in the class. Right? So you can simply explain ultimate outcome effect is this of realistic job preview. Right. So the realistic job preview, another explanation is there. The same thing, further explained. This model is explained by this. Right. When to use realistic job previews? When we are supposed to use? When candidates can be selective about jobs. When there are more applicants than jobs. When recruiters lack necessary information. When replacement costs are very high. Right? So normally realistic job previews are given, real situation of jobs are given at these instances. When candidates be selective about the jobs. Candidates are supposed to be selective. Candidates are expected to select their own jobs according to their preferences, according to their strengths and weaknesses, right? So suppose, for example, when the candidates are let the candidate select their preferred job, right? Rather than we do it. Candidate themselves select their own preferences. The candidate themselves select their preferred jobs, not preferred, capable job by themselves, right? So at those instances, we can use realistic job previews, right? So normally, this is done at the recruitment campaigns. Most of the organizations are doing this because, as you know, the using selective approach by the candidate, what do you call this? Candidates are allowed to select their own jobs, own capable jobs, is a best strategy for recruitment and selection in order to have a high talented, very good employees to the organization, right? So rather than just being selective by ourselves, employees or the capable candidates are given the authority, given the preference to be selective based on the realistic job previews. And when there are more applicants than jobs. Suppose we have 10 vacancies, nearly 1,000 applications received. So this is realistic job previews are normally applied at the recruitment when there is a more supply in the labor market to a particular job vacancy, to a particular job profession. We have, suppose we have a huge supply of labor, right? But now let's say art graduates. Now in Sri Lanka, we have nearly around thousand graduates are there for an art degree in a university normally, right? So that's a big amount. But the jobs created for the such graduates are really low in a Sri Lankan context, especially, right? So why we are producing huge art graduates in a context where the low employments are created for such graduates, right? So job demand is very low, but supply is very high. Labor supply is very high in such contexts. we need to have a selective candidates. So in that case, uh, rather than wasting our time to screen out unwanted candidates who are having less, what do you call this, unnecessary skills, we can let the candidates be selective from themselves, right? So how we can do that is simply by giving uh, realistic job reviews for them, right? So at the recruitment campaign, we simply suppose this type of a condition. Candidate must have 5 night shifts once they are appointed for the jobs. Candidates need to have a standing job. The job location, job station is embedded with the, what do you call this, job station. The employee need to work in the job station standing all the 24 hours. All the 8 shift hour employees are supposed to work in by standing. Or maybe let's say night shifts are there, 5 night shifts are there in this job, and those interested can apply, right? So likewise, real situations are given, then those interested with the real situations I applied are capable with the real situations I applied. Those not capable uh, prevent applying. So that's being selective, right? So that's a very good example for being selective by the candidates themselves, right? When recruiters lacks necessary information, right? So when recruiters do not have necessary informations about the organization and the job, simply realistic job preview is given at the vacancy notification, and then those who like to the real job apply, and those who don't like and don't capable are not capable with the requirements do not apply. When replacement cost is very high, when the recruitment cost is very high, suppose when the vacancies are 5, and once the vacancy notification is published, we have nearly 1,500 applicants. And obviously, selecting, screening their applications and selecting will take much time, and we'll have to spend more money for that for the organization. So, in order to prevent that, suppose in case of having only 5 vacancies in our organization, simply we must have at least 20 applications in order to fill the 5 vacancies, right? So then that saves our time. So that can be done by offering realistic job previews at the recruitment level, right? So automatically we publish our vacancy notification with a realistic job preview, and we receive nearly 15 applications rather than 1,500 applications. So that automatically screened at the recruitment level. So which means that giving the candidate be selective at the recruitment level by the giving the opportunity for the newcomer or the for the candidate be selective at the recruitment. That can be done by realistic job preview. Right, done. I think we have come to the end, and with this point, I'm stopping for today, and we'll proceed downwards by next time.